Good morning and welcome to Life Daily with Dawn. So yesterday I said we were on the last of the introductory videos. I want to do one more, so please allow me this space to do that this morning before we dive into the individual system sets. I want to talk to you a little bit and I want to share a visual. I want to share a visual representation for the map systems, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the shared characteristics of these map systems. I had forgotten this piece, but I saw it this morning and I thought I really feel like this will support us as we dive into these. So let's take a look at the shared characteristics of dynamic and sustainable systems so we understand what each of these systems has in common with the other life systems that support us in reconnecting to that fact that we ourselves are a dynamic and sustainable system fully equipped to thrive in this life. So the set of characteristics that the dynamic and sustainable systems share, the life systems, the solar systems, is that each of these characteristics they share is rooted in a view of wholeness and a beginning with wholeness. So looking for these characteristics can help you. It can be a benchmark in evaluation of how healthy or optimized a system is. And you can also use these guidelines as sort of a systems check to gauge the health of your internal system, beginning, with body, mind, heart, and soul or spirit, and to really examine how balanced you are. Are you really thriving in your life? So here are, I'm going to read them first and I'll just say a few things about them. There are 8 characteristics. They all begin with R, I believe. Respect, relationship, reclamation, restoration, realization, reappropriation, revolution, revelation. So those are the 8 characteristics. There's a lot of 8s when we talk about these life systems. There are 8 sets, 8 map systems within each. Can't get my words out this morning. 8 map systems within each system set. Within each of the 24 life systems, there are 8 momentum pathways. There are 8 shared characteristics of all of the map systems. And I'm forgetting one thing. Oh yes, it breaks down further, but I will confuse you if I go there right now. So let's start here. So the shared characteristics, respect. What's respect? So respect means that there is within a system or an approach to life, if you will, because that's what these life systems are. There is an honor and appreciation for the value and contribution offered by each of these pathways, and the contribution that's offered by all who enter into or engage with that pathway. It comes through the application of their own energetic frequency, their dreams, their desires, the contributions they bring forward, and that are brought forward because they are here by the force of life and the energy of life itself. So dynamic and sustainable systems are characterized by a healthy respect for every individual, group, or system, both within that system and in the larger world. If there's not that respect, then that's an indicator that something is off. Yeah, and basically to me, I prefer the word honoring. It's always been important to me, just because if there is no honoring of life and the life in another and the choice of another and the value of another, then there is no respect. And so that is a way to gauge in any circumstance really, but in terms of the system that you're using, in terms of how you're living, is there an honoring at the core? The second quality is relationship. We all pretty much understand what this means, and yet there is, within a healthy, thriving systems, there is a natural awareness of and a desire for healthy, balanced relationships with others. If that is not there and there's a total isolation or shutting off, or of one area of life or of the individual or of a group, that's an indicator. Or the opposite, if there are forced connections that are not authentic. This is about authentic relationships. And I have to get some water, excuse me. So this is the pollen. I was outside too much, which I love. I love being outside. It's been a little difficult of late, so when I do go, I get full force of it. So relationship thriving systems are open, and they're playful, and they invite interrelatedness both within the system and without. So as it pertains to you, because we're focused on you as a dynamic and sustainable system, there are the lines of connection within you open. Do you allow for an honoring of all that is within you? It's sometimes easier, of course, to allow for an honoring and a relating to those parts of us that we treasure and like. And it's a little more challenging when it comes to things, those qualities that are a little less appreciated by ourselves or others. So thriving systems are open systems. They're flourishing, and they adapt by creating more space. They are open to change, to new dynamics, new patterns of potential, new relationships, and they know that the space will expand to meet any need, and that there is in all things a hidden wholeness. In other words, in everything they perceive to be broken, there is the seed of wholeness. And so they understand, those who are a healthy system themselves or in healthy systems understand themselves to be in relationship with others that coexist within a given environment. So relationship is something to look at in terms of a particular approach to life. Reclamation. Reclamation is about a natural and maturing ability to reclaim life and all life-giving attributes in one's own life, in every environment, and trusting the process, leaning into love. While this inner source may previously have been neglected, cast aside, or forgotten altogether, resulting in temporal decay and deterioration, healthy, thriving systems seek to reclaim what has been hidden or covered up. They are often surprised to find that life is supporting them as they reclaim their natural state of wholeness. And so dynamic and sustainable systems see life working in their favor, and they naturally repair themselves, or even reverse negative effects of any damage done by any mistakes. Not mistakes, but mistakes. You get to try again. It's not once for all. You're not over and done. Or for example, if there's been a misdirected allocation of resources, then there is this healthy, thriving systems focus on the reclamation and the making right of the restoration as well, which is number 4. That's the next quality, number 4, restoration. There is in healthy, thriving systems a predisposition to harmony, wholeness, and a natural state. And that's a characteristic of healthy, thriving systems. So flourishing systems share a common orientation toward the full restoration of the whole self for all life, for all. And there exists this recognition that the first step toward restoration is rest. And it is a reunion within their the smallest component of life. So at the physical body self, with one individual, that looks like the cells repairing and restoring themselves. And how does that happen? It happens through rest and nourishment. So there is a real connection to the quality of restoration and all things that support that. The other thing is that what was I going to say there? Oh, yes. We often we use this word love to refer to this mysterious quality that feeds us, and yet we so often narrow its definition. And so within healthy, thriving systems, there is a tendency, and not even just a tendency, it's a commitment to tapping the streams of soul to return to one's true nature, and then to offer vital replenishment to the system, so vital replenishment of your life force, essentially, and to store and to care for resources that support your life source, not hoard, but to gather, and so just to in a very gentle way. And that in itself is the practice of love as it pertains to you as a dynamic and sustainable system. Number 5 characteristics of thriving systems is realization, a commitment to relentless authenticity and honest evaluation of the sacred seeds of essence within you or within that system. So there's a willingness to embrace a whole new way of seeing yourself that begins with light, and rather than stumbling around in the dark or addressing problems, or rushing to fix a circumstance or to control something, there is rather this orientation to light, and all that is nourishing of the life and spirit. And because of that focus, thereby more life is drawn to that system, and it attracts previously like levels of thriving that you thought were impossible. This has been totally the case in my own journey. And, exterior wise, it looks like I have a lot less than I ever had in the beginning. And yet, by various measures or indicators, and yet there is life. There is life and life to the full whenever I choose to connect with it, and with these 8 qualities for the thriving systems, and then of course with the individual ways to fine-tune my life that I'm going to share with you. So realization, reappropriation. So this one, when it was given to me, I didn't quite understand the fullness of it, but I've come a long way here. So this is about modeling a whole new way of being in life that begins with collaboration rather than competition. So it is about abundance in terms of a worldview, but it's about the sharing of resources and a continual rebalancing or reallocation of resources where it's needed most. And so there's this condition of life that is change, and shifting needs and conditions are a given within our lives. And so when we choose to cooperate, to collaborate, to coordinate, to coincide, to come together essentially, and combine efforts for accelerated growth and expansion in all directions, we thrive. Now, I'm not just talking about other individuals, although that is one thing that we can do. Each, as dynamic and sustainable systems, each has to be healthy and fully immersed in this approach for this to work, and then can come together and offer more and more and more, and not just offer more, but receive more as well. And so within the individual, what this looks like is that you're not at war with yourself, and there's not these warring, competing interests. You haven't compartmentalized things to death so that there's not like little buckets and you only do one at a time all the time. I mean, it is important, of course, to prioritize. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't do that, but there is also a need to see the whole, and gently just naturally reallocate resources where it's needed internally and in your own life, and see it all though as a coordinated system from within. And so the reappropriation, there's something more I want to say here that I'm not sure how to say. Probably if we looked up the definition of appropriation, that would help. but let's just say, for the sake of time today, that reappropriation, maybe do that, but reappropriation is about the efficient use of natural resources. So you don't rigidly only let what energy you have for life go to one little priority. For example, say you want to have a great career and make a lot of money. Or on the other hand, say you really want to get your physical body in shape and eat right and exercise and be functioning at optimal capacity. Well, if you take all of your life energy and pour it exclusively into that, over time, other areas will will suffer that you thought were strong. And so, or suffer is probably not the right word, but they will not be operating at full capacity. And so there's a balancing and a constant openness to sharing of resources internally within your dynamic and sustainable system. This, maximizes your efficiencies, it replenishes supplies, it restores the system, and it supports life and livelihood in all ways. And so that's reappropriation. Revolution, so particular favorite of mine. I love this word. I love the idea of revolution at its highest form, not as an overthrow necessarily, but rather as an expansion of the orbit, an expanding worldview, and a shift toward something that is elevated and a higher outcome for all. So within the individual, what does that look like? That looks like honoring all of your cycles of life and all of these various interests that appear to be competing within you. In fact, it's intended to work on, in terms of the machine metaphor, on all cylinders, all systems go. And so there's an honoring and an alignment within these cycles of life within healthy systems. Systems that are healthy seek out the energetic patterns that create ideal growing conditions and an atmosphere for natural evolution and thriving, for radical innovation and quantum leaps of expansion. So dynamic and sustainable systems allow, support, and encourage those who are parts of a larger system to find a whole new way of freeing themselves, sometimes within that system and sometimes by a choice to walk away from that larger system. So I hope I'm not confusing you, because we're talking about systems on multiple levels here. But this is talking about, revolution is actually talking about what would look like a natural rhythm to my life. What is my true frequency? What are the vibrational patterns that I am emanating and receiving that allow for new worlds of wonder in my life and previously unimagined possibilities within the system that I am? So it's really cool. Like when I started thinking about my life in this way, and to be honest, I'm just returning to it because it hasn't been hasn't been top of mind necessarily in the last couple of years. I've been focused elsewhere in terms of my own writing and work. And so returning to this reminds me of how when I was fully immersed in it, that it was like a natural thing for me to kind of do these checks throughout the day. And so, excuse me, so how open are you in your life to radical innovation, to trying something new, to a natural evolution, to continuing to grow? Or are you afraid of that and where it might lead and not thinking that you can do it? So this is again about a larger field of grace into which we're stepping. Number 8 of the 8 characteristics to look for in thriving systems, and sort of a checkpoint, a checklist for you, is revelation. Is there an openness to expanded pathways and possibilities? Dynamic and sustainable systems have that as a characteristic, and the expansion itself can be revealed in various forms. It can be as the form of new branches in your life, new branches of growth from the roots and the trunk of who you are, not physically, but just your character. And it could also appear as what I like to call patterns of layered light, so that are dancing in a particular area of your life, and the sparkle, the spark of life that you see in other people. We often see it in the eyes, or in the smile, or in the just general vibes that someone gives off, but it's evident in a lot of different ways. If you really look at yourself, you'll begin to discern where that spark is active and alive, and where it only flickers every now and then, and where it's gone out. And so that's one way to gauge a healthy system, and to really pay attention to all of you and, all of the ways you are thriving or not thriving, or supporting through your actions a thriving life or not supporting that. And and the way you tell is you look for an openness to revelation. Are you open to learning something new about that? Or do you feel like, oh, that's set, I'm not ever changing that? Or do you feel like that area, I've chalked, I've written it off? I know in my life I've done both, and what I have begun to realize in terms of using this approach to life is that it's me I'm shortchanging when I do that, and it's coming from a place of either fear of what might happen if I were to dare to explore this, or it's coming from a place of lack, which is that I'm either not deserving of that experience of life, or that I am not capable. There's not a capacity. For me, that's been a huge one in life, ironically. It's strange, my life, but anyway, we're not talking about me. Consider you and how this works within you as a dynamic and sustainable system. So again, patterns of layered light. Are there that? Do you feel that? Do you feel that within you there is the life force operating in such a way that there are whole new meanings and movement and momentum that is coming forth from you all the time in new areas of growth? So this is sort of like an orientation to growth, and yet it's called revelation, and it's really also about more of a the revelation of more and more of who you are in each aspect of how you approach life. So this is where we're really going down to the fundamental core way that you approach life. So as an example, a leaf on a tree it reveals something about the nature of the tree, just as an area of your life or a particular way that you show up. Now that could be like, think mind, body, heart, soul. So your emotions, your thoughts, your physical, where is your physical body and how does it show up, and how do you care for it and nurture it? So look at the patterns of layered light that indicate, is there an indication that there is a connection? Because that each area reveals something about who you are as a soul, and about the living structure that supports that soul, that is your sacred temple. And this, every aspect is an extension of the life of the whole system, and it's one way to gauge the health of your system. So an openness to revelation is a characteristic of a healthy, thriving system. So finally today, on the screen, I'm going to put a graphic that I did a long time ago. I had this great vision, so imagine it with me. I wanted to, I tried to do this. I wanted to make an interactive game board, or a website, or some sort of interactive environment where this is how we would dive into the systems. So there is this larger, what I used to call the cycle of creative revolutions, which is about explore, discover, create, and connect. Explore, discover, create, connect. That is the cycle of creative revolutions that we're invited into. And in the core, though, of this cycle, and there's a wheel that you go around with the 24 segments of the wheel, but within the core of it is this internal connection to source that's here represented by a leaf. And then there's these 8 circles, and then basically it's a flower of life pattern. It's not too evident from my little drawing with the colors on it, but there's all these colors at play, and then there's an opening of the flowering, and then irradiating out in various ways. But the system itself is dynamic and sustainable, and you can see these little figure 8 loosely representing a infinity symbol running throughout. So I'm going to paste below the portion of the book. I'm not sure if it'll all fit, so I may have to edit it actually. But that describes this visual representation of the dynamic and sustainable system that you are. And this is sort of a symbol for radiant expansion in your life and your life's work. And let me just quickly talk through the outer ring is represents the three portals or the three pathways we talked about yesterday, the soul exploration, soul expression, soul expansion. Those are the three big gateways to your soul's radiant expansion. And they are access points for your essential self, your essential journey, your essential truth. And then the 8 system sets that support each of those and reconnect you to the light and the life and the love you are. And help you to embrace a whole new way of seeing yourself, a whole new way of being yourself, and a whole new way of freeing yourself. The ring, there are symbols, there are 12 symbols embedded in this systems ring or C symbol. There's the infinity symbol. I'm not going to describe all these, it's in the book, and I will paste as much as I can below, but there's the infinity symbol. There's the seed, and this, which is the symbol of the sacred seed of essence you come bearing. There is the flower of life form that really represents that radiant expansion. There is Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and he's like sprung to life from an ever expanding sphere of becoming. So it speaks about harmony and balance and proportion. There is the tree of life in the background. By the way, you're not going to be able to see these all on what I put online because it's not feasible. I can't get it all in one drawing, but in any case, there's a Vitruvian Man, which is Leonardo da Vinci's drawing of the man, you know, the proportions. And it also reminds us of the perfection of who we are and a reclamation of that as the body and the soul that has come in this vessel. The tree of life, I think I mentioned that. The DNA-like strands of colored ribbon that emanate out in wave forms, and again are a call, reminder to that fact that we are in fact a wave. And we are here, we belong to one another, we have the same patterns of potential, and yet those patterns emerge in unique and magnificent ways across time and space in our lifetime and perhaps beyond. Yeah, beyond, because it doesn't stop. A spiral that moves outward and it's widening as it expands, but it's connected to that stable center. And so this is representative of the curve of humanity, the slope of our life, the growing in stature and wisdom. And so these 24 systems are like sprouts along that spiral. The star is born from within the core, and it extends with its invisible light into every aspect of this schematic. And all the way, the outward rays go all the way behind the wheel of life at the outside of this diagram. And yeah, the light is infused everywhere, the star of wonder. An atom ring, or you could consider this a ring of planets that floats kind of mid-air around that center inner core. And it reminds us of life's natural organizing systems and structures, and that we belong to something greater, and also that we belong to one another. It's a play too on solar systems in the sky and solar systems within us, as above, so below. And so our own solar, SOULAR system is only held together through cooperation and coordination in a matrix of soul that is a dynamic system, a dynamic and sustainable system, allowing for growth and change. There's an outer wheel that's meant to call to mind a compass or a ship's wheel, so about navigating the shifting winds of our lives and setting our life's course. And then the color wheel, which is the field of dreams in which we play, and it calls to mind creativity and the willingness to say yes to your life again and again and again, daring to begin again and to connect with infinite pathways to purpose. And finally, there's a personal symbol that I adopted as my logo. I just went off on a tangent in my company, Creative Revolutions, and decided that I was going to have a symbol, not a logo. And so it was a symbol that meant something to me. And I did that in 2012. And so that's rising up from behind the wheel of life. And it looks like it's like a sun. And that represents a whole new you and a whole new way forward together. And in time, a whole new world. And it's about the fact that morning has broken in our world, in your life. And it is a new day. And we rise to greet the new dawn, and we begin and begin again. So those are the components, the 12 components of the systems ring that's a representation of the dynamic and sustainable system that you are. And so now I feel that we have the foundations in order to move forward and to explore these 24 systems together. I'll see you tomorrow.